So, amidst everything else that is going on in Washington this week, we didn't want to lose sight of some really critical world affairs that continue to brew and bubble and cause a lot of reason for angst. There was an interview that caught my eye in Jacobin magazine. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Interview conducted by Branko Marcetic, friend of the show, with Lyle Goldstein, who is a director of Asia engagement at Defense Priorities and a former research professor at the U.S. Naval War College. And he argues that we should not underestimate the incredible danger posed by the Taiwan crisis and makes a pretty compelling case that the media is not helping to us to understand just how dangerous a situation this is. And Lyle, we are fortunate to have him join us now. Great to see you, sir. Welcome.
Good to see you, Lyle.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So just lay out the case here for why you think this is such a dangerous situation and, frankly, why you think that Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was such a foolish and provocative move.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I see it, China and the U.S. are really on a collision course here. It's exceedingly dangerous. I don't rule out that if there is a conflict, that it could be a nuclear conflict. I did my dissertation on nuclear strategy, so I'm well versed on this. And unfortunately, I see plenty of paths toward dangerous escalation. So it seems to me that, both sides are quite entrenched in their viewpoint. I don't really have any doubt about China's intent to try to bring Taiwan under its control, maybe even in the near term. And, Washington seems highly uncertain. I mean, the very title of the strategy is strategic ambiguity. Mm-hmm. There's little agreement about what that means. All attempts at clarification seem to fail. In this crisis, I think we've seen, some of the worst dynamics of how American domestic politics, try to cope with foreign policy, where, more or less the Pentagon and national security advisors appear to have been saying this is a bad idea. Certainly right now, it's a bad idea, the visit I'm talking about. And, Pelosi indicating, well, maybe she wouldn't go if the president was willing to step forward and say he advised her not to go. And then, right. President Biden, though, apparently unwilling to, go on record saying she shouldn't go. So it's been, kind of a hydra-headed approach that has just led to more confusion. And of course, the Chinese are watching these signals. And I'm troubled by all of this. I agree. I think most regional experts, but others like Tom Friedman, for example, said this was utterly reckless. And I agree. I think we're in a worse place today than we were a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, Lyle, that we pointed to after is that China is no longer answering even the phone calls of the Secretary of Defense. Something that you pointed to that I was not aware of is how the U.S. has been shown in the open press to lose war games that they've been gaming around the Taiwan situation. Could you elaborate a little bit further for the audience?
Well, you can read plenty of articles in the open press. If you just Google that, you'll see there's been plenty of reports about war games. There's a famous RAND analyst, David Akmanik. He's been cited in many reports making this statement. I think he works for RAND. So, I don't want to speak about, games I've been involved with, but this has just been reported openly in the press. So if you read about this, and it was an iterated set of conclusions. So, to me, that's quite powerful. But it checks with everything else we see. I mean, if you just look at the vast asymmetry of firepower, which mainly is due to geography. It's not that China is stronger than the U.S. The U.S. remains stronger in most respects, but this fight is not, in mid-Pacific or off the California coast. This is right in China's backyard, and therefore they can bring everything they have into the fight immediately. And what that means is there's a, vast asymmetry of firepower, like I said. When you add to that China considers this a core interest, by contrast, most Americans couldn't find Taiwan on a map and have no idea what its relationship to China is. So when you put those two together, this is a really dangerous situation in which we could be sleepwalking into a catastrophic war, one that we could potentially lose, but also one that could quite easily, as I said, go nuclear. China is building up its nuclear forces, and from my observation, most analysts who think about this don't really take it, that next step. How do we ensure that this does not lead to, use of nuclear weapons? I would go further, though. There's more at stake here, even than that, which is hard to believe. But, China just said they're not going to work with us on climate change anymore. That's, I think for people who are concerned about climate change, that's a pretty devastating result, and one we should think very hard about. All kinds of other areas we need to work closely with China on, and the more we poison the relationship by needling on this Taiwan issue, the more in jeopardy so many of these major issues for the 21st century are in doubt. So one more thing I would add, sorry, is that the amount of money that the U.S. has to put forward to try, if we're going to try to defend Taiwan, like I said, the asymmetry of firepower is so grave. We're talking trillions and trillions, and we still may not get there. So, there's a much wiser approach, and that's to, use realism and restraint and draw red lines at another place, not over Taiwan.
Well, and Lyle, one of the cases you make as well is that a lot of folks have drawn some of the wrong conclusions and wrong lessons from Ukraine, Russia. The wrong conclusion being, all right, the right approach here is to sort of flood the zone with weapons, versus what you say a smart approach would have been to actually engage in diplomacy from the beginning to try to avoid this war from the jump.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, of course, Putin bears primary responsibility for the war, and it's a huge catastrophe for Europe and for Russia and for Ukraine. But I believe much more could have been done in terms of diplomacy. Most of us who watch this carefully, and I speak Russian as well, it's clear that if Ukraine had simply declared neutrality, that probably would have gone a long way toward ending that crisis. So what we need here in the Taiwan situation is a similar attempt at diplomacy, but we have to make this diplomacy succeed. And here the U.S. needs to get a lot more creative and a lot more active. Mostly the United States has been passive and just sort of pushing weapons into Taiwan. I don't think that's a smart approach at all. In fact, arguably, all those videos of javelins flowing into Ukraine during the last, between November and February last year, I think I was kind of waving a red flag in front of a bull. The Russians said, well, we've got to go now. And I'm very concerned that China may be approaching this with a similar logic, is that, they don't like all these weapons piling up in Taiwan, and they decide now is the time. So I'm very, very concerned. And I think we need to put much more energy into looking for diplomatic solutions. Most people who look carefully at the Taiwan issue come around to a conclusion that basically you have to reach for some kind of confederation, and that's a very squishy concept, obviously, but it's sort of a meeting halfway, and that's what's absolutely necessary. By the way, like I said, creative diplomacy should have prevented the Ukraine war, in my view, too.
Yeah, you can't wish away the red lines of great powers, even if you may wish or hope or, want them to be different than what they ultimately are. You have to listen to what they're saying. Lyle, thank you so much for helping us understand this, because I do agree with you. I think the media is doing a very poor job of helping Americans to understand exactly how grave the stakes are here. Great to have you.
Thank you, Lyle. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. It's been a fun news week here on Breaking Points. I've been trying to hit
One
all
word
of
for
the
it.
top stories, break it down, explain it to everybody. I know it can be fraught times and all that, but it's actually probably the most fun in order to engage at this time, as exhausting as it often may be. So we appreciate all of your support very much. We've got exciting things in the works, not only the live show, but some new people who will be hopefully joining us that you'll be seeing very, very soon, and some other developments on the show as well. So those are our premium members. You guys are the ones who enable all of this. We deeply appreciate it. If you could sign up, there's a link in the description. Otherwise, we will see you all on Monday, and we have great content for you all over the weekend.
Yep. Love you guys. Enjoy the weekend. See you back here next week. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.